Hello everybody. Today I will talk about the digestive system. Its name is the digestive system because one of the important functions is the digestion of the food. That means the breakdown of the food occurs inside the digestive system. First, we'll talk about the parts of the digestive system. Then we'll talk about the layers in the wall of the digestive tract or GI tract. Then we'll talk about a couple of structures. One is called the mesentery, another is the peritoneum. So we'll see what are those structures and why those are important. Then we'll talk about different types of movements occur in the GI tract or digestive tract. Then we'll talk about the processes in the digestive system, regulation of the digestive functions, and the structure of the oral cavity, which is the first part of your GI tract. So first, the parts of the digestive system. If you see, digestive system has two parts. One part is called the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract, GI tract or gastrointestinal tract. It is also called alimentary canal. This part is a long tube, starts at the mouth and ends at the anus. So from the mouth or oral cavity to all the way the anus. It is a long tube and a continuous tube, and at different parts this tube gets narrow or wide. So you will see some places the tube is narrow and in some places the tube is wider. For example, next to the mouth is the pharynx. It is a muscular tube, so oral cavity or mouth, and next is the pharynx. So the food from the mouth enters into the pharynx, right? And then from the pharynx the food enters into a long narrow tube, this one. This is called the esophagus. And then this tube gets wide, you see here, and becomes a hollow organ, and that is called the stomach. So in this part the tube is very wide, right, to store the food. And then the tube gets narrow and long again, and that is the small intestine. So esophagus brings the food into the stomach, and from the stomach the digested food stuff enters into the small intestine. Small intestine has three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So those are the three parts of the small intestine. Okay, duodenum is the first short part, and then jejunum and ileum. Okay, so those are the three parts of the small intestine. And then the large intestine, the tube gets wider again and becomes the large intestine. So this is the small intestine here, and this is the large intestine. Okay, and then the last part is the anus. So from the mouth or oral cavity to all the way anus is the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract or digestive tract. And when the food passes through these structures, few things happen. Digestion, that means the breakdown of food, occurs. As you know, after you put the food inside the oral cavity or mouth, digestion starts. That means we start to chew the food, to break it, right, by teeth or tongue. And also secretion from the salivary gland occurs. So salivary secretion also breaks the food. So by crashing the food with your teeth, that is the mechanical breakdown or digestion, and by the saliva, that's the chemical breakdown or digestion. So both the mechanical and chemical breakdown or digestion take place in the oral cavity or mouth, right? And then the esophagus quickly takes the food bolus from the mouth to the stomach, and before it enters into the stomach, it passes through the pharynx, this tube. Okay, and then inside the stomach, the food is stored for hours, and during that time, a lot of secretion occurs from the wall of the stomach to break the food more. Further breakdown or digestion takes place, right? So the food becomes fine molecules called the nutrients, and then the nutrients or fine food molecules enter into the small intestine, where absorption, another process, takes place. So after digestion, the food molecules are taken into the blood from the intestine, and that process is called the absorption. Makes sense? Absorption of nutrients mostly occurs in the small intestine. Okay, through the wall of the small intestine, the nutrients enter into the blood, right? And then the food stuff enters into the large intestine, and where mostly the water and electrolytes are absorbed. Water and electrolytes. Makes sense? And nutrients are mostly absorbed in the small intestine. Nutrients means protein molecules, fat molecules, carbohydrate molecules, right? Like glucose, carbohydrate molecules, proteins, amino acids, fats, right? Fatty acids, triglycerides, those are absorbed. And then when the food stuff enters into the large intestine, first part of the large intestine is this part. This is the cecum. Okay, and then you see the colon. It has different parts. This part is going upwards, right? So this is the ascending colon. This is called the transverse colon. This is the descending, downwards descending colon, and this part, S shape or sigma shape, this is the sigmoid colon. Okay, and then rectum, anal canal, and anus. Okay, so those are the parts of your GI tract or gastrointestinal tract. Make sense? So that's the long tube. However, you have some accessory digestive organs present in the digestive system. What are those accessory organs? Teeth, tongue, salivary glands around the oral cavity or mouth, right? Then liver, the largest gland of the body, gallbladder, pancreas. These structures mostly secrete the chemicals, okay, and help in digestion of the food. Teeth helps to break the food mechanically, right? Mechanical digestion. Tongue also helps to break the food, as well as helps to mix the food with the secreted saliva. So salivary secretion occurs in the mouth, you know that. So the food is mixed with the saliva by the movement of the tongue. Then a food bolus is formed, and that bolus is pushed to the pharynx from the oral cavity. Okay, and that is the function of your tongue, mixing the food with the saliva, making the food bolus, and pushing it backwards to the pharynx. And that is the beginning of swallowing, right? and then salivary glands secrete saliva, and saliva has mucin. It is a highly watery secretion, but it has mucin that is helping to uh, put the food molecules together, that is called, or foodstuffs together, that is bolus formation. So mucin is a sticky secretion. That sticky secretion, mucin, would help to form the food bolus. So the bolus, soft, semi-solid, and also it becomes slippery. So that helps in swallowing, right? Liver, after the absorption of the nutrients first enter into the liver, because liver is the organ where the processing of the nutrients first take place. And gallbladder helps in fat digestion. So the gallbladder secretes bile, and the bile helps in fat digestion of fat. And pancreas secretes pancreatic juice, and pancreatic juice has different types of enzymes, protease, lipase, amylase. All those enzymes are present in the pancreatic juice, and protease helps in protein digestion, right? Protease, and lipase, lipid, and amylase, carbohydrate. So these are the enzymes end with ASE. Okay, so you see these organs, accessory organs, are helping in digestion, and either mechanically, then swallowing of the food, as well as breakdown of the food by secretion of chemicals. Okay, so now if you see the structure of the GI tract, if I just, this is a part of your GI tract, right, tube. Now if I just make a cross section and see a slice cross section, I'll see there are 4 layers in the wall of your GI tract. Okay, so there are 4 layers, and if you go from inside to outside, innermost layer is called the mucosa, this one, innermost lining, and then you have the submucosa. So this is the mucosa, this is submucosa, then muscularis externa, and outermost layer or covering is called the serosa. So those are the layers in the wall of the GI tract. Anywhere if you see, you will see those 4 layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. Okay, mucosa is formed by epithelial tissue mainly, and innermost lining is epithelial lining, and that is called the mucosal epithelium. And then under the epithelial lining you have the second layer of the mucosa, that is called the lamina propria. It is a connective tissue structure, and then you have a muscle layer, thin muscle layer, that's the muscularis mucosa. So mucosa is the innermost layer, and mucosa itself has 3 layers in it. Innermost is the epithelial lining or epithelium, then lamina propria is the middle layer, and muscularis mucosa, that means muscular layer in the mucosa, right? Muscularis mucosa, it's a smooth muscle, thin smooth muscle layer. Okay, so this muscularis mucosa is thin muscular layer. It helps in weak contraction of the wall of the GI tract. Okay, and then the second layer is the submucosa. It is a dense, irregular connective tissue layer. Okay, and mainly in this layer you will find the blood vessels, lymphatic follicles, lymphatic vessels. So those structures are present in the submucosa. Okay, and also you will find exocrine glands. So mucus and serous glands are present in this layer, and serous glands. Okay, so then you have the muscularis externa. You see, this muscular layer is thick, not thin. The muscularis mucosa that I showed you, in the mucosa, that is a thin smooth muscle layer, but this one is a thick smooth muscle layer. So this one helps in strong contraction. Okay, strong contraction. And in this smooth muscle layer has two layers in it. Inner layer is circular and outer longitudinal. If you see the wall, the inner layers, smooth muscle fibers, are going this way, that's why circular, and outer fibers are going like this, that's why these are called the longitudinal fibers. Okay, so in this layer, muscularis externa, the fibers, smooth muscle fibers, are arranged in two ways: circular inner and outer longitudinal. And this type of arrangement helps in the contraction in different directions. Like, just think that if these circular fibers contract, then the lumen will get smaller, right? And when these longitudinal fibers contract, the tube will get shorter. So to cause the constriction of the tube or narrowing of the tube, the circular muscle fibers help. And to make the tube short, to help the food pass, that is helped by the longitudinal layer. Okay, and then outermost layer is the serosa. It is mainly to protect the GI tract, outermost covering. Okay, and it is actually a layer of the peritoneum. Which layer? The visceral layer of peritoneum. Peritoneum has two layers in it, and the inner layer is the visceral and outer is the parietal. We'll talk about that soon. Okay, and in those areas you don't have the peritoneum. Those areas of GI tract has the outermost layer, which is not called the serosa, which is called the adventitia. Where you don't have the peritoneum, outer peritoneal layer, oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, rectum. In those structures, since those are not in the abdominal cavity or peritoneal cavity, their outermost layer is not visceral peritoneum. Okay, so that is called adventitia. Okay, now we will talk about the peritoneum. So let me draw. This is your abdomen. Okay, this is the abdominal wall. This is the front and this is the back of the body. So this is the abdominal wall. This is the front of your abdomen, and this is the back part of your trunk. This is the back. So now you see the layers of the peritoneum. In the inner side of your body wall or abdominal wall, you see this is a layer of the peritoneum, and it goes inwards like this. So let me draw. This is one layer of the peritoneum and goes inwards. And then if this is your stomach, for example, this is your liver. Okay, so what happens, these layers, you see, go like this and then covers the internal organs. For example, this is your liver, this is your stomach. Okay, and then from here these two layers will go towards the stomach and cover it. So now the layer of the peritoneum which is attached to the inner surface of the body wall, that is called the parietal peritoneum. Okay, peritoneum, and the one goes inside the body cavity, abdominal cavity, and covers the internal organs, for example around the liver, around the stomach. This layer is called the visceral peritoneum. Makes sense? Now if I cut the stomach, for example this one, I'll see the outermost layer is what? The visceral peritoneum, and that is the serosa, right? So serosa is actually the visceral peritoneum that I mentioned in last slide. Now this is the peritoneal cavity between the parietal and the visceral layer. This big space inside the abdominal cavity is called the peritoneal cavity. Make sense? And this cavity contains the fluid called the peritoneal fluid. Inside the peritoneal cavity you have the fluid, right? That's the peritoneal fluid, and this fluid helps to prevent the friction between the abdominal organs. Inside your abdomen you have a small intestine, large intestine, right? You have the liver, stomach, all those organs, and the fluid really helps to prevent the friction between those different organs. Make sense? So the parietal peritoneum is attached to the body wall, and visceral is attached to the internal organ. Okay, and visceral peritoneum is also called the serosa, outermost covering of the internal organs. Okay, now this part, you see this part, the folds going inwards, folds of the parietal peritoneum, this fold is called mesentery. Mesentery. Okay, this is also mesentery, same thing. Now if you look carefully, two parietal layers are going towards the internal organs, right? And there is a space between these two, and this space allows the blood vessels, nerves, lymphatic vessels, those structures go from the body wall to the internal organs. So that is a passage for the blood vessels, nerves, right? Lymphatic vessels, those structures. So mesentery provides route for the blood vessels, nerves, lymphatics. That is number one, right? So those structures can go to the internal organs. Also, you see the mesentery ties the organs to the body wall, so the organs will not move too much or will not go down all the way. So keep the organs in right locations. That is the stabilizes the organs. You know, there are many organs inside the abdominal cavity or peritoneal cavity. So if they are not tied to the wall, then they will all go to the bottom, right? We don't want that. So the organs should stay in right locations. They can move slightly, but they are tied to the body wall by the mesentery. Very helpful. Prevent entanglement of the intestine. You know, sometimes the intestine is very long, right? So it's a long tube. So sometimes we see the tube. Just think that you know, small children, they play with the tube balloons and they twist, and if you twist the tube balloon, it will completely block right here. So same thing might happen in the intestine. If the intestine twists, then that will completely block, the food stuff will not be able to pass, right? So that is prevented by the mesentery. So the intestine will not move a lot and will not get twisted. Okay, but if for some reason that twisting occurs, that will stop the food passing through the intestine. That is called volvulus. Okay, it's a clinical condition, and that might happen, but because of the mesentery, that doesn't happen usually. Okay, and a lot of fat get attached to the mesentery, around the mesentery, and that is the stored fats in the body. So storage of fat or energy. So these are the important functions of the mesentery, right? This picture is showing all those 4 layers from in the wall of your GI tract or digestive tract. Now if we see innermost mucosa, then you have the submucosa, this one. Then you have the muscularis mucosa, you see the red thick muscular layer, and then outermost layer, which is the visceral peritoneum, is the serosa. Now if you see the mucosa carefully, if you see mucosa has 3 layers in it, and this is the mesentery. It's tying the intestine to the body wall. It's not showing here, but I showed you before, right? Okay. Now in the wall of your GI tract you have nerve plexuses. That means the networks of nerves. There are 2 nerve plexuses in the wall of your GI tract. You know, in the wall of your GI tract you have how many layers? I mentioned 4 layers, right? Mucosa, then submucosa is the connective tissue layer, then you have the muscularis external layer, and then outermost serosa, right? So nerve plexuses are present in 2 layers. One is the submucosa here. So these are submucosal nerve plexuses, and another is in the muscularis externa. That is called myenteric nerve plexuses. Myo means muscle, so myenteric is in the muscle, and submucosa plexus in the submucosa. So 2 plexuses are present in those 2 layers, right? Submucosal plexus is in the submucosal layer, and myenteric plexus in the muscularis externa. Okay, and you know there are some glands, exocrine glands in the submucosa. We talked about that, exocrine glands, and the glands like serous mucous glands, they secrete the chemicals, and that secretion is controlled by the nerve plexus. Makes sense? Autonomic nerve fibers. And the myenteric plexus, these nerves or nerve plexuses, since they are in the muscle layer, muscularis externa, they control the contraction of the GI tract. Makes sense? And secretion, this one, from the glands. Okay, both are very important, right? So the regulation of GI tract function or digestive function mainly indicates the regulation of contraction and the regulation of secretion, because contraction helps to move the food and break the food, and secretion also helps in digestion. So those things should be controlled. If you eat a lot of food, then secretion and contraction should occur more. If you are not if you don't take a lot of food, then the contraction and secretion should be less, right? Otherwise, if excess secretion occurs when your stomach is empty, then that can burn your stomach wall, right? So that is very important, the regulation of secretion. When you have a lot of food in your stomach, secretion and contraction should be more, not when you are empty stomach. Okay, so here you see the glands in the submucosa. Okay, submucosal gland, and here you see this is the muscularis externa. So you have plexus here called the myenteric plexus, and you have, this is the submucosal layer, connective tissue layer, and you see the yellow structures. These are the nerves, nerve plexuses. So submucosal plexus and myenteric in the pteric plexus. Okay. Movement of the GI tract. Different types of movements occur in the GI tract. Movement is important to do what? To move the food. You know, food must move downwards, right? It cannot stay. Move the food, and also to break the food, or digestion. Digestion or break the food. So the movement is very important, right? And you know that the muscularis externa has the smooth muscle, right? And the smooth muscle has two layers. Muscularis externa has two layers: inner circular, outer longitudinal. And I explained that inner circular, when the inner circular fibers contract, the tube gets narrow. When the longitudinal fibers contract, the tube gets shorter. So those both movements are very important, right? Now the type of movement includes that occur in the GI tract includes peristalsis, segmentation, and there is another movement in some textbook you'll find that is called the pendular movement. Okay, so these are three types of movements, but these two are more important. Okay, peristalsis is wave like movements. That means the waves, you know, are produced one after another. If you see the waves in a river or in water ponds, you will see the waves move one after another. So if you see in the tube, the contraction starts from, for example, this point. Here is the food, so contraction starts here and it moves like this way down and then disappears. Then again another contraction occurs, so food will move little bit like here, then another contraction will occur here, okay, and push the food. So it's like if you put a ring, okay, or a ball inside a rubber tube, slippery rubber tube, and push from the back of the tube, then what will happen? The ring or ball inside the tube will move like, you know, wave like movement, and that is called the peristalsis. Okay, and that helps to move the food bolus downwards. Segmentation. So peristalsis occurs one after another, but segmentation occurs at the same time in multiple places. Like this is a long food bolus, and the segmentation is contraction will happen here, 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 here at the same time. So you press the wall at different locations around the food bolus at the same time together. So that will break the long food bolus into small pieces, right? Small pieces. So it is not wave like, but multiple segments are um, contraction at the multiple areas at the same time. Like this is 1, 2, 3, 4. In all these 4 areas, constriction of the tube will occur at the same time. But in case of peristalsis, we will start here and it will keep pushing until it disappears. Okay. Pendular movement, you remember the mesentery, the fold of the parietal peritoneum goes inwards and hang the organs. So this is the mesentery and this is the small intestine, for example. And since this side is attached to the body wall, it is like a structure you tied to the wall by a rope. This is the rope, mesentery, so it can move like a pendulum, right? Makes sense? So that's the pendular movement. Here you see the peristalsis that moves. Constriction occurs at one point here in the wall, and that will push the food this way, okay, and it will keep moving until the wave disappears. So then another wave will come and will push further, so one after another, like the waves. This is segmentation. You see, at multiple locations constriction occurs at the same time to break the long food bolus into multiple small pieces. Make sense? Okay, control of your GI tract or digestive functions. As I mentioned, that control means control of secretion. Two things should be controlled, right? Control of secretion and control of contraction. So when we say regulation of digestive system, we indicate the control or regulation of these two things, right? Now, these two things are controlled by nerves, that's the neural regulation or control, as well as by the hormones, that's the hormonal control or regulation. Okay. Now, if you see the wall of your GI tract again, so this is, for example, your stomach. This is the lumen in the stomach. You have the food stuff here, right? And when you eat food, what happens? The pressure on the stomach wall increases, right? Because your stomach is stretched. Expansion of the stomach that will create pressure in the wall, and that will activate the mechanoreceptors or mechanical receptors. Mechanoreceptors, because they are activated by pressure. That's why mechanoreceptors. So when you eat food, stomach wall has the mechanoreceptors, and because of the pressure, these mechanoreceptors will be activated. Okay. Also, the food is a chemical, right? So that will change the pH, and the chemical molecules like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, right? All different kinds of chemicals. Those two things, the pH and the chemical molecules, different types of chemical molecules, will activate another type of receptors. Those are called the chemoreceptors. So these are the chemoreceptors activated by the change of pH and presence of the chemicals, food. So two types of receptors are present in the wall of your GI tract. Mechanoreceptors are activated by pressure given by the food, and the chemoreceptors are activated by the chemicals. Okay, and when these receptors are activated, what happens? Then you remember two nerve plexuses, submucosal and myenteric plexuses. Those nerve plexuses are present in the wall, right? So from the receptors, the nerve plexuses will take the signal to the glands. So these are the glands, and the glands will secrete the chemicals to digest the food here, right? So the chemicals will be secreted from the glands, exocrine glands. Also, you remember the muscular is externa, muscular layer that will receive the signal, and the smooth muscle fibers will contract. So the contraction will occur due to the muscular layer. So two things happen, right? The first, the pressure of the food activates the mechanoreceptors. The food itself, chemical, will activate the chemoreceptors, right? So we have two types of receptors. And they will be activated by the food and will send signal through the nerve plexuses to the muscularis layer, muscularis externa, to cause the contraction, and to the glands, exocrine glands, to cause the secretion of the enzymes. Okay, and both will help in digestion. So that is one type of reflex. This is called short reflex, because the signal from the receptors are going to the muscles and the glands, and the nerve fibers are located within the wall, right? However, if strong contraction and secretion is needed, what will happen? These receptors will take the signal out from the wall and will go to the motor neurons or motor centers. Okay, and then the motor centers will send signal to the muscles, to the glands. Makes sense? So muscles and glands will get the signal, but in this case, you see, the signal is first getting out, then the motor control will send the signal back to the wall. So that's why this is called the long reflex. Okay, so the secretion and contraction can occur due to short reflex activation in the wall only, or can be activated through the long pathway or reflex. So long reflex is long pathway. Long pathway, it goes outside of the wall of the GI tract, and this is short pathway. Make sense? Another way secretion and contraction occurs even without the food in your mouth. When you smell food or see food, what happens? Secretion occurs in your stomach or mouth, right? Salivary secretion in the mouth, gastric secretion in the stomach. Even the food is not present in the GI tract. When you see the food, smell the food, right? So that would cause the secretion and also contraction. So that is called cephalic regulation, like a smell or sight of the food. Sighting the food will cause the secretion and contraction, and we know that, right? So that is another regulation. Okay, so the secretion and contraction is controlled by the nerves. We talked about that, right? Short and long reflex, but also by hormonal mechanisms. What is that? When the food enters into your GI tract, for example, into your stomach, in the wall of the GI tract, you have the enteroendocrine cells. These are actually the cells act like endocrine glands. Okay, and from these cells, the secretion of the hormones will enter into the blood. So hormones are secreted because these are the endocrine glands. Hormones secreted into the blood, and then the blood will take the hormone to the glands or muscles. Okay, exocrine glands, not the endocrine, exocrine glands, and to the muscles. So you see, endocrine cells in the wall of the stomach will secrete hormones into the blood, in the blood vessels of your GI tract, and then the blood will take the hormone to the exocrine glands to stimulate them and the muscles to cause the contraction and secretion. So that is the hormonal regulation. You see here, this one. These are the secretory cells, secrete the chemicals into the lumen to help the digestion. But what happens first, when the food enters into your GI tract, the enteroendocrine cells in the wall will release the hormones into the blood, and then blood will take the hormones to the exocrine secretory cells or glands to cause the secretion. So this is the hormonal control. Okay, and short and long reflexes are the neural control that I explained before, right? Long one is going outside to the central nervous system, motor centers, and then coming back to the glands and muscles in the wall. And the short reflex, it doesn't get out, stays inside the wall. Okay. Then the first organ of your GI tract is the oral cavity or mouth, right? Where, as I told you, the mechanical as well as chemical digestion takes place. With your teeth and tongue, you break the food, crush the food, chew the food. That's the mechanical, and secretion from the salivary glands will cause the mechanical breakdown. Okay, in the mouth. Inside the mouth, all kinds of foods are crushed, right? And that is mechanical digestion of all kinds of food take place. We break the food or cut the food, chop the food, and in the saliva you have the amylase and lipase. Lipase in the mouth, two enzymes are released: lipase for the lipid and amylase for the carbohydrates. No protease is secreted. No protease. That means no chemical digestion of proteins take place. Only the chemical digestion of lipids by lipase and carbohydrates by amylase take place in the mouth. But mechanical digestion of everything, right? Proteins, carbohydrates, fats, you break everything. Then the food enters into the muscular tube, pharynx. After you mix the food with the saliva, mainly by using your tongue, then a nice bolus of food is formed, right? That bolus is slippery because of the mucus in the saliva. So now it is ready to swallow, and you use the tongue to push the food to the pharynx. That is the beginning of deglutition or swallowing, and food will enter into the pharynx and will pass through the pharynx and will enter into the esophagus. Okay, and when the food enters into the esophagus, the food bolus by peristalsis, that waves one after another, wave like movement, peristalsis would move the food very fast to the stomach. So peristalsis will move the food to the stomach very fast. Okay, because it is slippery, and peristalsis is the movement that quickly transports to the stomach. And then inside the stomach, the food will stay for longer time, like hours. So stomach storage the food, and also a lot of secretion occurs. So the chemical breakdown by the secretions, and mechanical, because stomach also the wall contracts, so that will also break the food. So when the food enters into the stomach, since a lot of secretion occurs from the wall of the stomach, the food semi-solid food bolus becomes liquid, and that is called the chyme, CHYME, or chyme. Then food enters into the small intestine. As I told you, the food is now very small molecules, that is called the nutrients, and the nutrients will be absorbed. So absorption as well as digestion or breakdown continues in the small intestine. So stomach helps in storage and breakdown or digestion, these two things mainly. And small intestine, digestion continues, that means breakdown. However, also since the food becomes molecules, small molecules, the absorption, that means the food molecules will be taken into the blood. So most of the nutrients are absorbed through the wall of the small intestine. Then food stuff will go to the large intestine, and as I told you, the water and electrolytes are mainly absorbed through the wall of the large intestine. Now you see, if infection occurs or inflammation occurs in the wall of the large intestine, water and electrolytes will not be absorbed, right? Because the wall is not functioning properly because of the inflammation or infection. So electrolytes are absorbed in the large intestine, but if any problem occurs in the large intestine, then water will not be absorbed, electrolytes will not be absorbed, so they will get out with your stool, and that will cause diarrhea. So diarrhea causes loss of water, that will lead dehydration and also electrolytic loss in the body. Okay, so that happens. And if the food stuff stays for a long time in the large intestine, if for any reason large intestine is not contracting forcefully, then food stuff will not be able to move, right? Will stay there. And if the food stays there for a long time, then what will happen? The water and electrolytes will be absorbed more than normal. So the food stuff will become very hard, and that is called constipation. So changes in the large intestine can cause diarrhea or constipation. If food passes without absorption of water and electrolytes, that is diarrhea. If more absorption of water and electrolytes occur, that will cause hardening of the stool, that is constipation. Okay, so here you see the organs or parts of your GI tract. Now the processes take place in the GI tract. First, what happens when we decide that we will eat food? First, we put the food in the mouth. So this is your mouth. Okay, so what you do, you put the food using your hand or spoon, put the food inside the mouth, and that is called ingestion. Very simple, putting the food in the mouth from outside. And in the mouth, what happens? Digestion starts, mechanical and chemical, right? We talked about that. And then when the food stuff gets very small, like nutrient molecules, then taken to the blood, that is the absorption. And then also from all those parts of your GI tract, secretion occurs, right? And that is another process takes place in the GI tract. And then defecation is the last process. After the absorption is completed, then unabsorbed food stuff, unnecessary food stuff, will get out as stool or feces. That is called the defecation, the process. Okay, how the unabsorbed or unused unnecessary foodstuffs are excreted as feces from the body. So those are the processes take place in the GI tract. Okay, now the first organ is the oral cavity. If you see the structure of the oral cavity, this is the oral cavity. You are looking one half. So first let's see the front. The anterior part of the oral cavity has the lips. So lips form the anterior boundary, right? And then this is the roof. Roof is formed by the palate. Palate has two parts, hard palate and soft palate. So hard palate is formed by two bones, maxilla and palatine bone. Okay, and then soft palate is formed by the skeletal muscles. So hard palate part of the roof is formed by maxilla and what? Palatine. This is palate, so palatine bone. These two bones form the hard or bony part of the palate, and soft palate is this muscular part, skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle covered with thick mucosa. Okay, and that is the roof. And the floor is this. This is the tongue. So tongue forms the floor of the oral cavity, right? So that's the boundary, and both sides, lateral walls, are formed by the cheek. Your right and left cheeks form the lateral walls. Make sense? So that's the boundary of the oral cavity. Now, inside the oral cavity, you will find the teeth, right? And the area between the you see the lip and the teeth, this area is called the vestibule. Okay, and the free end of the soft palate is called the uvula, that you can see. Actually, if someone opens the mouth a lot, you can see the uvula, something hanging, right? And then you have a few other structures you can see here. So you have palatine tonsil. In the root of the tongue, you have the lingual tonsil. Lingual means tongue, and those are the structures you can see here. Labia is the lip. Cheeks form the lateral walls I mentioned. Hard palate and soft palate, that means the palate forms the roof or superior boundary, and then floor is the tongue. And if you see the back, you will see the opening, posterior opening of the oral cavity, and you can also see the hanging structure, that's the uvula. Okay, then as I showed you, the space between the lip and teeth, or cheek and teeth, that is the vestibule, right? And frenulum is a small tissue structure that connects the lip to the gums. Okay, so that's the labial frenulum. Labial means lip. Frenulum is that small bridge, a small bridle. Okay, small tissue structure that connects the lip to the gum. Gingiva or gum is the base of the tooth is surrounded by the gingiva or gum. You all know that. So here you see some structures inside the mouth. So first let's see the space between the lip and gum. That space is called the vestibule. That area actually is called the vestibule. Okay, and then this is the tiny tissue structure connecting the lip to the gum, that is called the frenulum, labial frenulum. You see the uvula, the part hanging. When you open the mouth, you can see it. Okay, and gingiva is the tissue around the root of your tooth. So this is the gum or gingiva here. So some structures of the mouth have been shown here. Okay, salivary glands are present around the mouth, as I mentioned, and secrete saliva. So we have three groups of salivary glands. Parotid, these are the largest in size. There are two parotid glands just in front of your ear, and then you have submandibular salivary glands under the mandible, and sublingual salivary glands under the tongue. Sub means below, lingual tongue, sub below mandible and parotid, and they secrete saliva. And the ducts, tube-like structures, take the saliva from the glands to the oral cavity or mouth, where you have the food and the saliva will get mixed with the food, right? And saliva is a watery secretion, so most part of it is water, but it also has other chemicals. And as I mentioned, the serous secretion or fluid has the chemicals that can destroy the bacteria, microorganisms, so that is very helpful, right? Also cleans the oral cavity or mouth. Saliva keeps the mouth or oral cavity clean and destroy the microorganisms. Also the mucin, which is sticky, slippery secretion that helps to make the food bolus as well as movement of the food. Okay, so I'll stop here this first part of the digestive system.